makes some sense of it all, but I can see it makes no sense at all. Is it cool to go to sleep on the floor? 'Cause I don't think that I can take anymore. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is, what day is it? Oh my gosh, Wednesday, March 4th, 2026. And Carney flip-flops on Iran support. Awkward. Is very awkward. The whole situation is not funny, but the script got changed. And everybody's going with it. Keir Starmer's going with it. They're all going with it. And so I find it funny, and I'll show it to you. London bankers blocked the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to start there. Trump's going to open it. So the Strait of Hormuz was going to be the reason for big oil prices, or oil prices going up, gas prices going up, everything going up. And, out of Trump's hands, he can't do anything about it. And, well, Trump's doing something about it, like I thought he might. So there you go. Maybe some updates on the deal for Vancouver. So I don't know if it's actually a leaked part of the deal, but there's revenue from Vancouver Airport. There's all sorts of money being thrown around, and I think that's interesting. 30,000 kids forced Toronto School Board to back down. Why oil is up and the Canadian dollar is not, and answers today. And a new uranium mine in Saskatchewan. So we do the big stories and the little stories here on Canada Poly. So lots to get to. Let's get to it first. The Strait of Hormuz. Yesterday, old soldier says the Strait of Hormuz in Iran, Iran did not close it. 7 insurance companies in London did. And somebody said, Grok, can you provide any claim or basis for this comment? And Grok says, the claim is accurate per multiple reports. Reuters, Guardian, CNBC, FT, March 2nd to 4th, 2026. 7 major P&I clubs, and that names them, issued 72-hour war risk cancellation notices for Persian Gulf Iranian waters. This is insurance. They will not have insurance if something happens if they go through the Strait of Hormuz because war. So there you go. That's what there's reporting. And they're trying to block it up. And they're going to say Iran did this. But there's been problems with that narrative, if you ask me, because Iran's citizens are rising up, apparently. And Iran's in the middle of a war with Israel and the United States. Well, war, military action, potato, whatever you want to call it, And so them being able to project power, the United States went and sunk all their ships. I don't see how they could then block up the Strait of Hormuz without the United States riding in and saying, "Hey, you Iranian, rabble rouser, we're gonna sink your ship," type deal. So I didn't understand how it worked, and now I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's very, very plausible." And so Grok says, "Yes, that's true." And somebody says, "What does that mean that the Strait of Hormuz was closed by 7 insurance companies?" An old soldier says the shipping insurance companies are withdrawing cover for ships in that region. So the ships can't sail through, but Iran no longer has a navy. The United States Navy is patrolling the area. The U.S. government is offering to insure ships sailing through. Ships will move now. So there you go. Strait of Hormuz, open. Crisis averted. And I thought that was going to happen. Yesterday, I was like, well, this can't lag on because it'll screw Trump's economy. And that's the one thing he's good at. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. And here's Donald Trump again. He says, effective immediately, I've ordered the United States Development Finance Corporation, DFC, to provide at a very reasonable price political risk insurance and guarantees for the financial security of all maritime trade, especially energy, traveling through the Gulf. This will be available to all shipping lines. If necessary, the United States Navy will begin escorting tankers through the Strait of Hormuz as soon as possible. No matter what, the United States will ensure the free flow of energy to the world. The United States economy and military might is the greatest on earth. More actions to come. Thank you for your attention to this matter. You're not going to shut down our energy. You're not going to do it. It's that simple. And again, here's Pete, Secretary of War, Defensive Secretary of War, the Secretary of War, saying Iran no longer has an air force or a navy, and our allied planes will be flying sorties all over Iranian skies. They've lost control of the air. Their population's rising up. They've lost their navy. And indeed, yesterday, I think I reported on it, 11 ships were sank by the United States. And so you can't block up the Strait of Hormuz in that situation. If you call up your military and you say, listen, go block up the Strait of Hormuz, they're not going to listen to you because they've got other shit to deal with. Anyway, here's Hegseth, and he says, these guys are cooked. But I've heard that before too. I'm not saying this is truth. I'm saying this is what they're saying. Okay. So here we go. Oh, hold on. Sorry. I've got to There you go.
Starting last night and to be completed in a few days, in under a week, the two most powerful air forces in the world will have complete control of Iranian skies, uncontested airspace. I hope all the folks watching understand what uncontested airspace and complete control means. It means we will fly all day, all night, day and night, finding, fixing, and finishing the missiles and defense industrial base of the Iranian military, finding and fixing their leaders and their military leaders, flying over Tehran, flying over Iran, flying over their capital, flying over the IRGC, Iranian leaders looking up and seeing only U.S. and Israeli air power every minute of every day until we decide it's over.
Is there a button that plays the America F Yeah song? Like, America, right? I have buttons that play songs. They should have buttons that play songs.
And Iran will be able to do nothing about it. B-2s, B-52s, B-1s, Predator drones, fighters, controlling the skies, picking targets. Death and destruction from the sky all day long.
My favorite part was the little skit in the middle where he's the Iranian leader looking up at the skies of the overwhelming Air Force power. It's all a show. It's a pageant. It's a pageant. Collingwood says, I've said it for days now, and I think that I was one of the first to say it with the midterms coming. It's entirely possible that Trump imposes export controls on U.S. energy to isolate the domestic market from global price increases. If Qatar stays shut for gas, where would the UK and EU source it from? And at what price? Recall the personal political stakes in these midterms for the Trump administration. The loss of Congress would see him spend the next 2 years as a lame duck president battling obstructionism as the Congress attempts to undo everything he's imposed so far, and as they seek to set the grounds for Democrats to win back the White House in 2028. But it also means probable impeachment and cases against him and his family and close associates. Remember that the U.S. has had export controls on oil until 2015 and effective controls on natural gas until 2016. It's only been a big exporter for about 10 years. So that's interesting. And I don't think it fits with what Trump's saying publicly, that he's going to make sure energy flows to the world. He doesn't want to see an oil spike. He doesn't want to have to isolate the United States from the oil markets. He wants to make money on it. So spike. He wants oil between $60 and $80 a gallon. If you've watched Landman, you'll understand why. But that's the sweet spot, right? And so that makes things get built, that makes things affordable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's what Trump's going for. So people saying that he's going to be isolationist. Sure, he is isolationist to a degree, Israel. But fundamentally, he doesn't want to destroy the economics of the world. I don't think. If he wants to destroy the economics of the world, he wants to destroy them less than the globalists who are trying to impose communism on the West. So, and at this point in time, we've got those two options, I think. I don't think there's a third option. Is there a third option? Michael Chong says, Prime Minister Carney continues to demonstrate a worrying trend, running away from accountability and refusing to answer questions. The Prime Minister, his ministers, and his officials continue to contradict themselves on India and on Iran. And we'll get to the flip-flop in just a second. And the PM refuses to clarify what the government's position actually is. On India last week, Carney government officials said India is no longer meddling in conducting foreign interference activities, transnational repression or violence in Canada. This week, CSIS says the opposite, that India is still one of the main perpetrators of foreign interference and espionage activities in Canada. On Iran last week, Mr. Carney was unequivocal in supporting U.S. airstrikes. And again, we'll get there in a minute. Against Iran when he said Canada supports the United States acting to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent its regime from further threatening international peace and security. In contrast, Minister Anand said this week, we prefer a diplomatic solution and Canada believes in a diplomatic and peaceful solution. Good luck. How's that working out, the UN? We can believe in that all you want. It doesn't make it real, Anita. Minister McGuinty managed to say both contradictory things at once, that the government supports the U.S. airstrikes and supports a ceasefire. The Prime Minister and the government decided from the beginning of this that we would support this incursion, but we're also calling for a diplomatic end to it. We'd very much prefer to see peace and a ceasefire. The Prime Minister is avoiding the media and refuses to answer questions about the threats to our safety and security of Canadians and refuses to answer questions about Canada's position in international affairs. This is deeply troubling. As head of head of government, he has a special responsibility for national security and for the conduct of international relations. He needs to start answering questions. Yeah, he's not interested in it. He takes orders and he does what he's told. Here's Trump, and this is in the Strait of Hormuz, because that's kind of Iran affiliated stuff, right? And because Spain's woke leadership wouldn't let Trump and the Americans use their bases, Trump just shut off trade with Spain. I was like, ooh, we're getting spicy now. Here we go. Oh, this is not the video I want to show you. This is the Spanish leader's like cut here. I want to show you the full video of Trump. So this is Trump in the White House talking about this.
And now Spain actually said everybody was enthusiastic about it, Germany, everybody, and Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it, but we don't have to. But they were unfriendly, and so I told him we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people, but they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they would have agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain.
Next question. It's funny. Like, funny is not the right word. I'm not laughing at Spain's misfortune. The people there don't deserve to be impacted negatively by this. And they will be, and that's unfortunate. But maybe that's incentive to rise up and deal with the terrible government that's in place in Spain. And maybe the same applies to Canada, right? We don't deserve, Canadians don't deserve, you don't deserve, and I don't deserve, and all our friends and family and so on don't deserve to have negative economic outcomes, blah, blah, blah. However, we're allowing our leadership to represent us, and they appear to be prize a-holes and communists. So maybe we should deal with that, and then go to the United States and say, hey, real sorry about being a-holes for a while. We took care of the problem. Want to trade? And they'd probably say, hey, sure, right? So like, that's just my gut feeling, though. Who knows? Maybe browbeating Trump for 4 years is a really good idea. 8 years, 10 years, whatever it is. The food professor says, if tensions persist in the Middle East, Canadian food prices could feel the impact. For the full story, read below. So yeah, if the Strait of Hormuz stays closed, we would have an impact. We would absolutely have an impact. A lot of canned peaches and all of the canned fruits and things come from Greece and a lot of those countries. And, it would have an impact. It would have a huge impact. So we'll see. Constitutional Gator says, good luck in that position, breaking the Alatoya Khamenei's oldest son, elected to supreme leader to replace his dad. So good luck. People in that position, unless you're actively trying to stop everything that's going on by surrendering or something like that, you're going to be targeted. And it's the biggest military in the world. I wouldn't want to be targeted by the U.S. military. Thanks very much. Here's Rubio. And there are people, maybe there's something to it, I don't know, who say Iran didn't have a Rothschild bank, other places didn't have a Rothschild bank, Iran, Venezuela, North Korea, another one didn't have a Rothschild bank. And they were saying that these places are actually the good guys and we're the bad guys. Now, I'm not trying to stand up for Rothschild bank. I'm not trying to stand up for Rothschild bankers or anything like that either. I think that the rogue states are useful if the bad guys own them. If the bad guys own the quote good guys and everybody in the G7, right? And then they also own the rogue states that saber rattle about, Iran, we're going to blow you up with nuclear weapons. North Korea, we're going to do nuclear tests. And, it's a big problem. Venezuela, they were saying America's the big devil or the big Satan, wasn't it? Or is that Ahmadinejad? What was his name? The other Iranian leader. But they would use that, and it's useful if the deep state owns both. They own the leadership, they own the rogue states. The rogue state does something, and then your benefactor, Rothschild or whatever, calls you up and says, yes, because this is happening in Iran, we're going to have a red line, no fly zones and all this other stuff, amping it up. And it's basically a pantomime. It's a play. It's a pageant, right? And you sell that to your audience. Go watch Wag the Dog. They do that all the time. I don't think that the absence of Rothschild banks is indication that they're the good guys. I think the absence of Rothschild banks hides their intention, and they can launder money all they want through those states. I think it's useful for them to play both sides, and I think they do. So maybe there's something to that whole Rothschild bank thing, but also maybe not. I don't know. And I'd be fine to learn more about it. But here's Rubio saying the mullahs are crazy lunatics who want nuclear weapons. So take it with a grain of salt. But this is what Rubio's saying.
Let me explain to you guys this in simple English. Okay? Iran is run by lunatics, religious fanatic lunatics. They have an ambition to have nuclear weapons. They intend to develop those nuclear weapons behind a program of missiles and drones and terrorism that the world will not be able to touch them for fear of those things. And this is the weakest they've ever been. Now is the time to go after them. The president made the decision to go after them, take away their missiles, take away their navy, take away their drones, take away their ability to make those things so that they can never have a nuclear weapon. That's why the president made this decision. It was the right decision. And the world will be a safer place when these radical clerics no longer have access to these weapons. You see how they're using them now. Imagine how they would use them a year from now if they had more of these. Let me explain.
There you go. So that's Rubio's take, and we'll see. Next president. Some people think that he's going to be the next president. He seems more forceful than Vance. Vance is I don't know. Here is Mark Carney 3 days ago saying we fully support the United States in their strike against Iran and their push to take away nuclear weapons. Here's Carney.
Thank you all. Wow, what a great room. Thank you very much. The Islamic Republic of Iran is the principal source of instability and terror throughout the Middle East. It has one of the world's worst human rights records and must never be allowed to obtain or develop nuclear weapons. Canada and our international partners have called consistently upon the Iranian regime to end its nuclear program, including at the G7 summit in Kananaskis and with the United Nations reimposition of sanctions this past September. We've sanctioned over 250 Iranian entities. We've listed the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist entity. And despite numerous diplomatic efforts, Iran has neither fully dismantled its nuclear program, halted all enrichment activities, nor ended its support for regional terrorist proxy groups. Canada stands with the Iranian people in their long and courageous struggle against this oppressive regime, and we reaffirm Israel's right to defend itself. Canada supports the United States acting to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent its regime from further threatening international peace and security. And the Canadian government...
Okay, so there he said, full-throated, fully, we support them doing this. And then 3 days later, somebody called him and said, no, you don't. And so Stephen Chase says, Carney says Ottawa's position supporting the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran was taken with regret. Does he look regretful? Did he sound regretful? Is there somebody standing there behind the curtain? You know, you better say what I want you to say, or you might regret it. But he just regrets it anyway. And now he's flip-flopped on Iran and the support for Iran. Table Salt says breaking Carney backstabs Canadians in the United States and pivots to siding with the EU on Iran. Now he says that he took the position of supporting the EU and Iran with regret, urges the United States to respect international rules, says Canada was not consulted on this war. And well, there's a reason for that. We just said that China was our security partner and in a new world order and all of the rest of it. There's lots of responses to this flip-flop, so we'll get to the flip-flop and then I'll show you the responses.
We do, however, take this position with regret because the current conflict is another example of the failure of the international order. Despite decades of UN Security Council resolutions, the tireless work of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and the succession of sanctions and diplomatic frameworks, Iran's nuclear threat remains. And now, the United States and Israel have acted without engaging the United Nations or consulting allies, including Canada. So where to from here? With a rapidly spreading conflict and growing threats to civilian life. Canada reaffirms that international law binds all belligerents. We condemn the strikes carried out by Iran on civilians and civilian infrastructure across the Middle East. and we implore all parties, including the United States and Israel, to respect the rules of international engagement. Canada calls for a rapid de-escalation of hostilities and is prepared to assist in achieving this goal. Resolution of this crisis will require commitment to a broader political solution. And diplomatic engagement is essential to avoid a wider and deeper conflict. Innocent civilians must be protected, and all parties must commit to finding enduring agreements to end both nuclear proliferation and terrorist extremism.
Ooh, terrorist extremism. So it's a big flip-flop, right? We regret saying what we said about that thing, and people are noticing. Dan, who's an MP, says Carney said in January that China was his new strategic partner as part of his new world order, and now he complains that he's not consulted by the U.S. in dealing with failures of the international order. The inability to pick a lane is telling. Yep. And Mike says, Canada, America is no longer a reliable ally. We reaffirm our strategic partnership with China. Also Canada, why didn't America share its secret military plans with us? Yep. Carney's, he doesn't have any credibility. Lee says a clear statement by the Prime Minister Carney on day one in support of the United States and Israel attack in Iran. 3 days later, after a revolt of some 25 pro-Hamas anti-Semitic Liberal Party MPs and their much-needed 7 NDP MP allies, the backpedaling has begun. I don't think that's it. I think it was a global, because Keir Starmer is aligned, and I'll show you in a minute, but we're going to have to say goodbye to the stream in a minute. Once again, the government is demonstrating that they have absolutely no principles beyond trying to appease their anti-Semitic, anti-Trump acolytes. Harrison Faulkner is sharing this, David McGuinty, and he's a minister. I think he's, no, I can't remember which minister he is. He's one of the top generals for Carney. And this is his statement. I think this is right after the situation here, but here we go. This is before Carney flip-flopped.
Well, listen, as I say, we've been following the situation in Iran for quite a while, carefully. We're getting just-in-time updates on the situation in the Middle East now. And the Prime Minister and the government decided from the beginning of this that we would support this incursion. But we're also calling for a diplomatic end to it. We very much would prefer to see peace and a ceasefire. That's what my colleague, Minister Anand, is driving forward now with her colleagues around the world. And so we'll see where this takes us. Canadians know this is a difficult, complicated, and unfortunate situation.